What up, guys? What up? I am Lou, and today, guys, we're going to be talking about how to set a password to an Excel workbook. And I'm also going to show you how to, if you're trying to remove the password, on the steps to do that as well. But not just the workbook, we're also going to review on how do you set passwords to a worksheet, and again, remove that. So that's what we're going to be doing today, guys. Before we get started, if you could give me a follow, give me a like, guys. Like always, hit that follow button, hit that like. I appreciate it. Let's get started, guys. Alright, guys, so let's start from scratch. Let me make this a bit bigger. Let me move this down some. Alright, I think this should be good enough. Alright, cool. So we're going to be using two packages, right? So for testing, if you're testing out, like always, guys, I mention it all the time, create a virtual environment, set up your environment, and then go ahead and install. There's two packages that you need to install. One of them is going to be openpyxl. All right, so again, if you're not familiar with it, let me show you real quick. So we're going to be dealing here with openpyxl. So one of the packages, right? Pip install openpyxl. We're going to use this package to set passwords to worksheets and remove them from worksheets. The other one, it's going to be Win32. Damn it. Python Win32, which is this guy, py Win32, right? So this is the one. This is the package that we're going to be using. Just kind of, keep it simple. Win32. Well, pretty much what this package allows you to do, it allows you to access all of Windows APIs that you're able to communicate with different resources, whether it be Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Word, text editor, whatever, right? Like there's so many different things you could do that you could control. You could open up applications, you could write to, text editor, whatever it is. It's a very powerful tool. It's an old school tool. By that I mean it's been out for a while, but nevertheless still powerful and useful. So those are the two packages that you're gonna need. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna import in my Win32 COM client. Cache import ensure dispatch. All right, the next one is going to be from openpy import load workbook. This is to load a workbook. And then the final one would be passlib to import purepass. All right, so now that we have that, I'm gonna end up creating 4 functions. I like to separate my code that way. I've been doing it more and more often. Just keeps it easier. And I do that for y'all, for viewers who are watching it. If you ever need it, it makes it easier just to take that function code and paste it in your perhaps in your application, right, or where your use case. So the first function, we're gonna call this set workbook password with Win32. And this is going to take a file directory pass. So file directory pass, that would mean it would be the full root pass on where you want to read a file from. Then of course it will also have the file name as well. It's the full pass of the file name. Then of course password. In this case, we're going to call this Excel file, and this is what we're going to call our dispatch, right? And what we do here is, because of how I mentioned earlier, the Win32 COM is not a Excel type API like package. This is more of a Windows, think of it that way, and it gives you access to a lot of Windows API that exist. So you're able to call different applications. So in this case, I gotta specify the application, which would be Excel application. Assuming maybe I want to call in something else like Notepad, right? It will be something like that, for example. But again, just want to make sure that you're clear. This is not a Excel package at all. This is a Windows package to access Windows APIs, Win32 column anyways, and then from there you could access a lot of the applications that again run on Windows. Open up applications, close applications, do all kinds of stuff. So WB will be our workbook. So we're gonna call this file.workbooks. Then it will be open, and then it will be file directory path, right? So again, this is the full root path of wherever folder is coming from and the file name, the Excel file name you want to open. So next it will be Excel file dot display alerts equals false. We don't want no alerts displayed. The reason why we're setting these workbook would be visible equals false is without setting these. What actually happens is it actually opens up Excel. So put it this way, whenever you run this, you do need Excel, keep that in mind, and Excel is being open in the background. You just don't see it. If you don't set these alerts to false, Excel actually opens up like in front of you. You can see it open, and then it kind of does what it needs to do. Then it should just go away. If you don't mind that, don't worry about this. But I don't like having Excel opening up, which is why I always, turn that off. Save as, and this would be again file directory path, and then this would be password equals password, right? So I'm saving it back to the same file that I opened it up, saving it back, but I'm also applying a password, and that's where you apply your password. And then it becomes the workbook close, and then it becomes Excel file quit, because again Excel is running on the background. So because Excel is running in the background, once it finishes applying a password and save it, you want to close out that instance of Excel, right? So keep that in mind, because if you don't apply this, what's going to happen is as you keep running this application over and over again, it's going to be spinning up instances of Excel over and over again. So just kind of, and you're going to have to go to the task manager and either manually kill them one by one or reboot your machine, right? One or the other. So just kind of keep that in mind. So that's one function, and this function is going to be to set a password using Win32. So I just call it Win32, so at least you're aware of that's what we're doing here, right? Since we are using two different packages. The next package, the next function, we're going to call this Unprotect workbook with Win32, and in this case it will be file directory path. Oops. A new file directory path. I'll explain in a minute why we gotta specify that. So the reason why we need to specify a new file directory path, ultimately what this is a new file name. Think of it that way. And the reason why you gotta specify a new file name is in Excel, when you password protect a workbook, not a worksheet, but an actual workbook, there is no way just to remove it. Not that I've been able to find at all. You cannot just remove it. So the way to truly, I guess, have the password removed, you actually have to do a save as, right? Like save it as a different name. And when you do that, there's a section under tools, general options, I believe, where you have to like manually remove the password and then save it. I'll show you in a minute once we run it. But in order, since we're trying to automate it, we're still going to save it under a different name like normal. And then that would remove, when we do that, we'll be clearing out the password as well. And I'll show you how we'll be doing that. So same thing, we're going to bring this instance here, the ensure dispatch, which is going to be Excel. We are going to have to In this case, we're gonna read our workbook the same way. Oops. The difference is whenever we read, as you can tell, we have our file directory pass, but we're gonna pass in some new arguments. Some of the new arguments that we're gonna pass in are gonna be false, true, none, and then it's gonna be password, right? So you gotta specify these, right? And it's always gonna be false, true, none, then password. So just kind of keep that in mind. What am I missing here? Why am I getting this squiggly? Did something happen? Workbooks. Open. File directory pass. False. Oh, my bad. There it goes. Boom, I forgot a comma. I was like, dude, why am I getting alright, cool. So, alright, the next thing that we're gonna do is going to be workbook unprotect, and we're gonna pass in the password. Ultimately, what we're doing here is you're passing in a password to unprotect the workbook, to like apply, like change the settings to unprotect. Do keep in mind, if it's a incorrect password, I believe it won't error out, but it's not going to save. Like when you get ready to save, you may have an issue there. So just kind of keep that in mind. Excel file dot, again, display. So let me just copy from over here. We're going to need both of these. Again, because I want this to run in the background. I don't want to see it visually running. And then it would be workbook save as. And then in this case would be the new file directory name. Again, the new name, but we've got to specify the path. If you don't specify the path, it will just save in the same folder where you're running your code. But again, you want to be able to provide where to save it to ultimately, right? So then it will be none, blank, blank. All right. Then the next thing would be close, and then it's going to be, oops, quit. Again, quit is very important, man. You want to be able to quit your instance of Excel. You don't want to have that running. So it's very similar to the way you set your passwords. The difference is there's these other additional arguments we have to pass in to when we open up the file with the password. And then also we have to call the unprotected class here and provide a password. And let's see what else. I believe this is a class in a way. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a method. But either way, we got to pass it in. And then, of course, when we save, we got to pass in the new file name. Again, you cannot remove the password of a workbook with keeping the same name. The way you do it is you have to unprotect it, which means it's clear. Then you have to resave it without a password. That's why we got these blanks. And then by doing so, you have a new copy, but it won't have passwords associated with it, right? So again, these two function that we just created, one is to set a password on a workbook, the other one is to remove the password on a workbook. All right, so now we're going to create two more functions, and these are going to be set worksheet password with openpyxl. So this is where we're going to be using the other package now, right? The other package being openpyxl. Alright, so in here, when we set the password, we're going to do a load. We need a load, in this case, means, think of it as open or read. We're going to read an Excel file. Right, that's pretty much what it is. So it'll be file directory pass. And again, this is our workbook object. Alright. Now we got to set a worksheet. So there are different ways to do it. We could do, for example, worksheet by index, index 0 being your first worksheet. So if all you have is one worksheet only, then of course 0 is fine. If you're dealing with mini worksheets, then that's where you would want to do, you could do it by name. You could do it by specifying the name, right? Let's say if it's sheet 1 or sheet 2, whatever it is, you could do it that way as well. It's kind of up to you, right? Or you could do it by active. Active mean whatever worksheet happens to be active, right? Like let's say you have worksheet with a workbook with 5 sheets. Well, when you open it up, it's always going to open up on one sheet, right? That's the active sheet. So you could do it that way. It's really up to you on how you want to do it. And in our case, I'm just going to do it by index. So I'm going to do sheet 0 because I only have one sheet in my file anyways. So that's how I'm going to do it. So we have worksheet. Then the next thing would be worksheet protection set password. Then of course we specify the password. Oops. So we're going to set a password to that worksheet that's active, right? Which is this guy over here. And then after that, it would be a save. Then we're going to provide file directory pass. That's it. This is done. We're adding a password to our worksheet and we're saving it. So now we want to do opposite, right? We want to unprotect worksheet with openpyxl. And on this one, it'll be the same thing. It will be file directory pass. We got to provide the password. And then it's going to be very similar to what we did up here, right? So we're going to bring both of these in. Same thing with this. We need to bring in the password. We need to provide a password to the worksheet. And after we do that, the only difference, I guess we're actually going to bring everything in, put it that way, right? The only difference here, we're going to specify it's going to be a protection sheet equals false. So since we provided a password here, think of it as we're unlocking it, right? We provided a password. And what we're doing is we're assigning the false value to our sheet protection. And that pretty much said like, hey, it's going to be false now. It's not protected no more. And then we're saving it. So that's how we make it, get it to remove the password on a worksheet, right? So now, well, let's go ahead and test it out, right? We want to run this. We want to be able to test it out. So let's do if name equals main, and so this is ultimately going to run this piece of logic that we have down here. And let's kind of create a directory pass. This is where I want my my file to my Excel file that I want it to read from. So what I'm gonna do is, this is not it. Where is it at? Sandbox. And let me create a new folder in here, right? We're going to create a new folder and just call it files. And in here, I'm going to take a copy of one of the ones that we have. So this is a Excel file that I have. And let's say in here, I may have another folder and I'm going to call it output. This is where I want the results of the output. If we're generating a new file, which we're going to have to do when we save, remove, unprotect a workbook anyways. So just kind of keep that in mind. So what I'm going to do here is, here's my directory pass, right? Again, if you're using Linux or Mac, just again, same thing, provide your pass. Maybe it's a network, same thing, provide the pass of the network that you're working with, whatever it is. The next thing is going to be file name, right? We need to specify a file that we want to process, which in this case is going to be this guy. So let me go ahead and copy the file name. And then this is where I'm going to do file pass. And this is where I'm going to use pure pass. Again, pure pass is the, in my mind is a must, because it makes it so much easier when you're bouncing from Linux to Windows and so on. You don't need to worry about the pass. The directory pass or none of that. So it kind of fixes all of that. Alright, so now that we have that, so the other thing we need to create the password. So let's say I call it TY hashtag, just some random values, right? So there's my password pretty much. So let's say what we want to do first. So let's do the worksheet, right? Let's go ahead and protect the worksheet. So I'm going to call this function. And then we're going to remove the password of the worksheet. But before we do this, let's go ahead and go to the file. Want to open this up. Make sure you could tell everything looks good. I could double click. I could edit, right? I'm able to do everything. No problem. I could change the forms. All of that, right? No problem. So just want to make sure we're on the same page. Don't save. All right, cool. So now let me go ahead and run it. So I'm running my file, and depreciated warning module, blah blah blah. Okay, either way, it's a warning, but it's not an issue. It should be good. Whoa, hold on, why? Something made this get imported. I don't know why. Either way, though, it still ran, so it does that sometime, man. It like auto completes and it inserts something. So either way, let me kind of come to it. So this did get saved. You can tell by the time, 9:41, 9:42. Let me go ahead and open it. So it shouldn't allow me. Boom, there you go. See, it's telling me that it's password protected. I cannot modify nothing. Everything's password protected. For the sheet, in a way, the sheet's password protected. Now you can tell I was able to open the workbook, no problem, but the sheet is protected. Now if I create a new sheet, this sheet is not protected, because keep in mind, I only protected the first sheet, right? So that's something you gotta just kind of be aware of. The password protection was on one sheet. If you're trying to protect all the sheets of a workbook, maybe you have a workbook with 10 sheets, then ultimately that's where you would have to probably do some kind of iteration. Get a list of all the sheets names, which you could do, and then once you get that list, that let me go ahead and close this out. Don't save. So just kind of, I'm not going to go too detailed, but see how you have worksheets. You could do sheets names. I believe that's what it is. If you do sheet names, it gives you it returns an object, which is a list object of all the names, and you could just do a for loop over that list, and now pretty much do exactly what I did here, but through a for loop where you're applying a password to all the sheets. So just something to keep in mind, right? There's a way for that. But this worked. This assigned a password for that file. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to remove the password. So let's go to the unprotect function that we just created. File directory pass, and then of course password, right? So now that I have that, oops, my bad. This is file pass, not directory pass, file pass. All right, which is this guy. So what should happen is it should remove the password for the worksheet. So let's go ahead and let's run it, and let's see what we get. You can tell it just saved right now, 9:44, so it did save. It should open. So now it should allow me to change this. Boom, and it did. See, back to 1, 4. So now I can modify everything in this worksheet, right? Because again, I removed the password from it. So at least this show you the two examples of how to unprotect a worksheet using openpyxl and how to password protect a worksheet using openpyxl, right? So we got those two knocked out. Now what we want to do, we want to be able to password protect the workbook, right? Not the sheet, but the workbook. Now, that I'm aware of, I don't think there's a way to do that in openpyxl. Not that I'm aware of, anyways. So the way I have normally done this in the past is I use Win32, this WinCom32 package, which again, it's a Windows API to be able to access the operating system's API, and from there you could access many applications. It's not an Excel package. Keep that in mind. This is a Windows API, package here in Python, Win32com, which gives you access to Windows APIs for Outlook, for Excel, PowerPoint, Notepad, like whatever applications you want to think of, man. For the you could get creative and use. So let's go ahead and look at the set password. So again, we're gonna provide a directory pass and then a password, and this is what we're doing here, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna remove this guy. Let me hit save, and let's run it again. So one thing I do need to do, because again, this does cause errors, I notice. I need to make sure, since I'm using PurePass, this is in a string format. If I don't do so, it does cause issues when it comes to saving. So my bad. Yes, it does cause issues when it comes to saving. So just kind of keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and run it. Again, before I run it, haven't ran it yet. Let's just open it up. If I open this up, no problem. See, opens up, no problem. Let's go ahead and run it now. Takes a little bit longer, but boom, it's done. Now, and it did save. Now let's open it up. As you could tell, now there's a password. It needs a password, right? So if I go back and I type in this password, it should unlock. And there you go, it did. Once it unlocks, you could do whatever, right? You could make your changes, do all that stuff. No issues. So one thing to keep in mind though, once it's password protected, whenever you password protect the sheet, you have an option, go under the review tab, and you can just click on unprotect sheet. And then of course put in your password, save, and you're good. Well, you could tell there is no option here to unprotect your workbook. And the reason why, because the way it's actually being protected, you gotta go to info, see how it says protect workbook. A password is required to open up this workbook because it's a protected workbook. But there is no option to unprotect. Like, you don't see that option. So the way you would do it manually, right? The way you would do it manually, you would literally have to go to save as, click more options, whatever name. Let's say if I want to save it under the output, and then you got to go to tools. Oops, let me remove. There it goes. Got to remove my face. So then you got to go to tools and click general options, and see how there's a password in there by default. You got to remove this. So when you remove it, then you hit OK. Then now I hit save. So I can go ahead and close this out. And if I go to my output, I'll see the file here. And if I double click, it opens up without any password, message like to enter in the password. And everything works fine, right? That's the way you do it manually, right? So keep that in mind. That is how you would, if you're trying to remove the password of a file, that's how you do it manually. But keep in mind, notice how I had to open this file first. Then I have to do a save as, which means I needed to save it in a different folder. So one of the things that we're gonna, in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to, again, let me go ahead and get my unprotected function. Oops, what happened here? Oh, it copied the whole damn thing. Oh, let me go back. Unprotect workbook. And it's taking 3 arguments. Again, this is the same, but it's taking a new directory path. And that's where we're going to specify a new directory path. So what I'm going to do here, let me just call this new directory path, which is going to be the same as this, but I'm going to specify the output folder, right? The folder that I just created, output, right here. And then I'm going to also need see how I have a file path. I'm going to need a new file path. This will be pure path, a new directory path. Then of course it will be file name, right? Same name, but I need to save it somewhere else. Because if you save it in the same folder, then you do got to give it a different name, some kind of unique name, because you already have that Excel file open, right? So kind of keep that in mind. So now same thing, right? It's going to be string new file path, comma, and then password, right? So we have 3 arguments. The file that we're going to read, which is the first argument, the file path. The new file path, which is where we're going to save it, like export it, like save the file to. And then of course password. So now again, let's just take a look. If I double click, we got a password. There is no file here. Output's empty. So let me go ahead and rerun it now. We're going to run it. Boom, it's saved. So and now my output, I have a new file. So when I double click this, it should not ask for a password. Keep in mind it shouldn't, but let's check and see. Boom, no password. And then of course I can modify it. Right. So not too bad, but ultimately, I mean, you can see we ended up creating 4 functions here. 2 functions to set a password on a workbook and unprotect the workbook, and then 2 additional functions to set a password to a worksheet and then unprotect the worksheet. Right, so that's pretty much what we did here. Again, guys, hopefully this was beneficial. Hopefully it helped out. Again, I had a request from a viewer. That's how this request came up. So I am getting, more and more requests. So I am going to be pushing more and more videos, but I will try to get to everybody's requests as much as possible anyways, right? So again, guys, appreciate all the support. Hit that like button if you haven't hit it yet. Give me a follow, and hopefully this video helps. Thanks for watching. Peace.